Resistance organisms are resulting in increase in the morbidity and the mortality all over the world. Over the last decade, particularly the gram-negative organisms, MDR gram-negative organism, they have spread all over the world and have resulted in increased mortality in the ICUs and the hospitals. So that is what I am going to discuss today. The objectives of my talk are to learn about the common MDR organisms, to understand what are the common mechanism of resistance, and to understand the antibiotic strategies for MDR and XDR gram-negative organisms. There is increased level of resistance to antibiotic which we routinely used against bacteria is basically responsible for nosocomial infections which have resulted in not only the higher morbidity, higher mortality, prolonged hospitalizations and higher cost of care. Why do we have so much of MDR? It's because I think all of us are responsible. We overuse and misuse antibiotics. Even if it is a non-infectious, we use antibiotics. And to make your patient well, there is a pressure on you, and that results in overzealous antibiotic prescription by the physicians. And the over-the-counter sales in certain countries in Asia, particularly in India, that also by the public has resulted in this. And of course, the inappropriate antibiotic therapy, which could be because patient has been exposed to antibiotics earlier, prolonged length of stay, prior hospitalization, non-compliance, presence of invasive devices, and colonization pressure by the resistant pathogens in the ICU. They all result in the increased resistance of bacteria in the ICUs. Why are we so much concerned about MDR? We are concerned because it has been seen in the studies that if a person is infected with MDR organism, it results in the bad outcome. And if you see in this study, they have shown the chances of survival are less if a person is suffering from MDR organisms. Before I go ahead, I think it's important to describe the terminology. When do you call MDR, XDR or pan-drug resistance? The multi-drug resistance is called when isolate is non-susceptible to at least one agent in 3 or more antibiotic classes. Extensive drug resistance when isolate is non-susceptible to at least one agent in all but or fewer antibiotic classes, and pan-drug resistance when isolate is non-susceptible to all agents. This terminology is important because various studies have used various definitions, and the ECDC and CDC in 2001 described these terminologies, and I think we should use this terminology when any of these is present in a particular patient. So what are the common MDR organisms which we encounter? The ESBL producing Enterobacteriaceae, among that E. coli and Klebsiella are the most common organisms. Then the second group, carbapenem resistant Enterobacteriaceae, where the Klebsiella and Enterobacter are the most common organism, and the non-fermenting gram-negative bacilli or the non-Enterobacteriaceae gram-negative MDR bacilli, Pseudomonas, Acinetobacter and Stenotrophomonas. So these are the common organisms which are of concern, and that is what we are going to discuss in our talk. This is not uncommon to see a report like this. Acinetobacter, Klebsiella, which is resistant to all but sensitive only to polymyxin or may not be sensitive to any of the antibiotics. That's bad. That's very bad for our coming generations. MDR is increasing. Of course, all of us know, and India, it is rising at a very high speed. 70% of the ICU surveyed in India show resistant to multiple antibiotics. Prevalence of metallo-beta-lactamase producing organism range 7 to 65% in India. We are different from the Western world. The commonest isolate in the Western world is the gram-positive. In our country, it is gram-negative. ESBL producing gram-negatives are much higher in our country, in India, and they are less in the Western world. Prevalence of ESBL in last few has really increased. even 65 to 80% of the Enterobacteriaceae, E. coli and Klebsiella are resistant to the common cephalosporins. Mostly in India there are open ICUs and they are not closed ICU, and there are a lot of generics which are available, and there is no restriction of antibiotics. So all these put pressure on the bacteria to become resistant, and that is also one of the reasons. How does these gram-negative bacteria develop resistance? There are multiple mechanisms, and it could be the production of the beta-lactamase enzyme which destroys the antibiotic. That's the commonest mechanism of resistance of gram-negative. Then it could be the loss of porin channels. The drug does not enter into the periplasmic space because of the loss of porin channel, or efflux mechanism. The drug is thrown out of the bacteria and it does not concentrate, or it could be mutations. But there is increase in beta-lactamases over the last few years exponentially, which is the main reason 80% of the production of the beta-lactamase is responsible for the resistance among the gram-negatives. Let us first discuss about the ESBLs. The ESBLs are the expanded spectrum beta-lactamases. These are the enzymes which confer resistance of the bacteria to most beta-lactam antibiotics, including penicillin, third and fourth generation cephalosporins, and the Monobactam aztreonam. The commonest ESBL among the Enterobacteriaceae are the E. coli and the Klebsiella, and others are Proteus, Acinetobacter, Pseudomonas, Salmonella, Serratia, and Shigella. Of course, the E. coli and Klebsiella pneumoniae are the commonest organism in this group of organisms. It could be colonizer. In a urinary tract, it could just be colonizer, or it could result as serious or life-threatening illness, which could be bacteremia, UTI, meningitis, peritonitis, or hospital-acquired pneumonia. There was a study done in India which was called the MYSTIC Indian Microbial Study Group, which showed that 65 out of 71 E. coli and 96% of these Klebsiella species were ESBL producer. Such a high rate of ESBL in the hospital where the study was done. And CTX-M15 was the common molecular mechanism for responsible for this. Then there was SMART 2007, which was a study done in the Asia Pacific region, and again they found the ESBL occurrence in Asia Pacific region. India was the most leading. So we have very high rate of ESBL in this country. Why is it so? What is the reason? Prolonged hospital stay, prolonged ICU stay, presence of catheters, abdominal surgery, gastrostomy or jejunostomy, gut colonization with these bacteria, low birth weight, prior administration of antibiotic, prior resistance in a long care facility, severity of illness, urinary catheter, mechanical ventilation, hemodialysis, all these resulted in the production of ESBL. How do you diagnose? If in a culture report you find that the bacteria is resistant to third and fourth generation cephalosporins like cefotaxime, ceftazidime, ceftriaxone or cefepime, but is sensitive to beta-lactamase inhibitor combination, that means you have an ESBL. So this bacteria has ability of a beta-lactamase inhibitor to block the resistance, because it is able to block this resistance, so that is responsible for causing the ESBL. So diagnosing ESBL means if you find the resistant to third and fourth generation cephalosporin but is sensitive to beta-lactam inhibitor, then probably the patient has ESBL organisms. So how do you treat these? Like beta-lactam is able to block, so piperacillin sulbactam, piperacillin tazobactam, these are the antibiotics which could be useful in treating ESBLs. Cefamycin, not all cephalosporin are resistant. Cefamycin, cefoxitin and cefotetin, these are not hydrolyzed by the ESBLs, so they could be used in treating the ESBLs. Then fluoroquinolones in a sensitive organism, aminoglycoside or tetracycline could be also be used to treat ESBLs. But most consistent against the ESBL are the carbapenems. Imipenem, meropenem, doripenem, ertapenem. They have the most consistent efficacy against the ESBLs. Colistin and polymyxin B have activity against most ESBLs, but I think you should not use these against the ESBLs and preserve them for the other multi-drug resistant Acinetobacter and Pseudomonas. The other group of MDR gram-negative bacilli is the carbapenem resistant Enterobacteriaceae. And the commonest organism in this group are Klebsiella and Enterobacter, and there are other species also. The resistance of carbapenem is acquired because of again a beta-lactamase which is carbapenem hydrolyzing. It's a beta-lactamase which hydrolyzes carbapenem. That's why you call it carbapenemase. Is an important mechanism, and these enzymes of carbapenemase have been classified into group class Ember classification, class A, class B and class T are of great clinical importance. Class A is the Klebsiella pneumoniae carbapenemase, which is called the KPC. Class B includes important is the NDM1, and the class D is an OXA. Let's discuss a little bit about them. The Klebsiella pneumoniae carbapenemase is extremely important carbapenemase which is responsible for resistance among the Klebsiella pneumoniae. The class B beta-lactamase are also called the metallo-beta-lactamase because their dependence upon zinc for efficient hydrolysis of beta-lactamase. And the important enzyme in this group is the New Delhi metallo-beta-lactamase, which was discovered in New Delhi from the water samples, and that's why its name is New Delhi beta-lactamase. And the naturally occurring producers of the group B are the Aeromonas hydrophilia, Chrysobacterium species, Stenotrophomonas maltophilia. These are naturally occurring KPC in these. Then the carbapenem resistant Enterobacteriaceae, there are three basic beta-lactamase or the carbapenemase which are responsible for mechanism of resistance. The first is Klebsiella pneumoniae and carbapenemase, which is more prevalent in the western world. In India, it is the New Delhi metallo-beta-lactamase which is responsible for resistance of the Klebsiella pneumoniae to the carbapenemase. And the third is the OXA48 carbapenemase, which is also responsible for resistance among the carbapenem resistant Enterobacteriaceae. So let's discuss about the KPC producing organisms. The Klebsiella pneumoniae carbapenemase producing Enterobacteriaceae. This was isolated in North Carolina, spread worldwide. There are 10 variants, the KPC2 through the KPC11, and the risk factor for carbapenem producing organism are previous history of receiving carbapenems, ICU state, trauma, diabetes, malignancy, organ transplantation, mechanical ventilation, catheters, and these are the KPC producing organism. Of course, the commonest is the Klebsiella pneumoniae, E. coli, Proteus, Salmonella, and among the non-Enterobacteriaceae which can produce KPC are the Pseudomonas and the Acinetobacter. There are three very important mechanisms or the carbapenemase which are responsible for the carbapenem resistant Enterobacteriaceae: KPC, NDM1 and OXA48. NDM1 is the predominant mechanism in India. It was originally described from New Delhi environmental sample in 2009, and this now is widespread in all over the world, particularly in the Asia Pacific region. These organisms are found to only susceptible to colistin or tetracycline, and they are resistant to carbapenems. And there is a paper published from Hinduja Hospital, and then subsequently the paper published from Assam also, where they showed that these organisms were resistant to carbapenems. But the furor was raised when this paper was published by Karthikeyan, which showed the people who had visited India and they developed a disease, they were carrying NDM1, and this study advised that people should not visit India because if they get infection, there is a chance of getting the NDM1 organism. And among the carbapenem resistant organism, as I said earlier, the NDM1 is responsible almost 94% in one of the studies and 82% among the Klebsiella. You can find out whether a person is carrying a carbapenem resistant Klebsiella pneumoniae and E. coli by the MIC and the sensitivity pattern. If E. coli and Klebsiella pneumoniae are showing they are resistant to carbapenems, then probably this is a carbapenem is producing Enterobacteriaceae or E. coli and Klebsiella. But if you find the MIC is less than 0.5, then probably the E. coli and Klebsiella is not producing the carbapenemase. So if you find the MIC is more than 0.5 and you find overt resistant to carbapenems, then the person is carrying a carbapenem resistant Enterobacteriaceae. If you find that the isolate is susceptible to third generation cephalosporin but resistant to mepenem, probably the Serratia marcescens is the organism in that group which is responsible for the carbapenemase production. What are the diseases which can be caused by the carbapenemase producing Enterobacteriaceae? It could be asymptomatic colonization, bloodstream infection, ventilator associated pneumonia, urinary tract infection, central venous catheter infection and surgical wounds. These organisms are resistant to penicillin, cephalosporin, carbapenems, aminoglycosides and fluoroquinolones. Current therapeutic option for carbapenemase producing bacteria: polymyxin, colistin, TG cycline, other non-beta lactamase antimicrobial based on the susceptibility report, fosfomycin. Older drugs are being used more often to treat now the organism which were left out long ago. There is a lot of talk about the combination therapy. Although the evidence in the literature is not that much, but the combination therapy has been found to be effective and it's being recommended and is being used. The advantage of combination is it's a broader antibacterial spectrum, synergistic effect, reduces the emerging drug resistance. The disadvantage is if you use the combination, it increases toxicity, superinfection, selection of drug resistant strains and a higher cost. As far as the empiric therapy is concerned, it has shown that if you use combination, it reduces mortality only with the Pseudomonas. It is superior to monotherapy in severely ill patient, and Cochrane review has shown the aminoglycoside with beta-lactam does not reduce the overall mortality. As a definitive therapy, it has been shown it improves clinical outcomes in neutropenia, severe infection and Pseudomonas, and there is no clinical evidence that it increases the side effect and resistance, and one must de-escalate when they are not required. This is one of the papers which clearly showed that if KPC producing Klebsiella pneumonia, if you give a monotherapy, the mortality was 57.8%, and if you give a combination with carbapenems, the mortality was 13.23%. So definitely there is a difference in the KPC producing organism. If you give a combination therapy, the outcome is better. And the chances of survival as seen here are better with a combination than when you use a monotherapy, and 30-day mortality was definitely better with a combination therapy as compared to the monotherapy. Then this is a study on a 36 bloodstream infection which were treated with combination therapy of 2 or more drugs including carbapenem, and they found that it was more effective than using a monotherapy. The lot of literature or lot of evidence is emerging that you should be using a higher dose than a lower dose. Like doripenem is recommended 1 to 2 gram of a loading dose and 1 to 2 gram TID over 4 hours. Meropenem 2 gram and 2 gram TID over 4 hours. Imipenem 1 gram and 1 gram 3 times a day. TG cycline 200 milligram and 100 milligram OD. So the evidence is emerging for using the higher dose against these MDR organisms. Fosfomycin is another drug which is not effective against Acinetobacter but has a activity against the KPC producing organisms and the Pseudomonas. But if you use it, one has to use in a higher dose, and it has been found to be quite effective in patients suffering from UTI. This is one of the algorithm which has been suggested in a KPC producing organism or the carbapenem resistant Klebsiella pneumoniae. They said that depending on the area of involvement, like if it is a bloodstream, the core agent high dose meropenem and colistin. If it is a lung, again the high dose meropenem and colistin. For biliary tract, high dose meropenem, TG and colistin. For urine, the core agent should be high dose meropenem or the fosfomycin. So these were the new drugs which were suggested as a core agent. Then you can include, depending on if there is no sensitivity, the high dose TG cycline, gentamicin, fosfomycin for bloodstream, and high dose TG cycline, gentamicin and fosfomycin for lung. For biliary tract, rifampicin and fosfomycin. But for a country like India, with so much of tuberculosis, rifampicin is really not suggested. For urine, again, you can include gentamicin and high dose TG cycline if the organism is sensitive. And then you can also modify according to the antibiogram. If the MIC for meronam is more than 32 milligram, then you should not be using the meropenem. But if it is less, you should continue the meropenem. Then if the colistin MIC is more than 2, you should not be using colistin, but if it is less, you should use colistin. Similarly for TG cycline, if MIC is more than 4 milligram, you should not use the TG cycline. So this is one of the algorithm for the carbapenem producing organism that empirically you can start treatment, but then based on the antibiogram, you can modify the treatment for your patient. So to conclude, the increasing level of resistance among the gram-negative remains a global problem. ESB and carbapenem resistant Enterobacteriaceae have really increased multifold in all over the world, particularly in the Asia Pacific region. Carbapenem have the most consistent effect against the ESBLs. KPC, NDM1 beta-lactamase and OXA48 are the common mechanism of resistance among the carbapenem producing Enterobacteriaceae, and it is very important that you should use a combination therapy, although evidence is not enough, but the carbapenem producing Enterobacteriaceae, colistin definase or polymyxins have the consistent effect against these organisms. They should be combined with another drug which could be a carbapenem, TG cycline, fosfomycin, depending on what you are treating in your patient. Thank you very much.